An interesting discussion popped up in the comment section of one of my TikTok videos yesterday, and by interesting discussion I mean some angry keyboard warriors telling me what the law is without being a lawyer themselves. So welcome back, I'm the Black Belt Barrister helping you to understand law, and in this video something that lots of people do thinking that it's quite innocent, which is actually a criminal offence of theft, which is arguably one of the types of offences that can have the most destructive effect on your life, because a dishonesty offence can have all sorts of repercussions throughout your life and restrict your career and all sorts of different things. So in the original video I was answering the question as to whether or not it is an offence to be eating or consuming food in a supermarket before having paid for it. And the short answer is yes, it technically amounts to theft because you've treated the product as your own and you've disposed of it as though you were the owner, and you've deprived the actual current owner of their rights to the property. Allow me to explain a little further. You see, when you're in a supermarket and the items are on the shelf and there is a pricing there, that is an invitation to treat. They are inviting you in the shop to make an offer to purchase the item. When you take it to the till and say, I'd like to buy this, that is your offer to buy it for the price that's labelled on the shelf. That's your offer, and then when they accept your payment, they are accepting your offer to purchase the goods at the price so labelled. Some people, by way of a bit of a tangent, think that if it's wrongly labelled, the shop must sell it to you at that price. That, of course, is not true. When you make an offer to purchase the item, they can refuse. Many shops do, of course, honour that price, but there's no legal requirement for them to do so. If, for example, a TV, and this actually happened once, if a TV was labelled up incorrectly at, say, $199 instead of $199, and you took 15 of them or 20 of them to the till to pay for them at $199 each, the shop can quite rightfully say, actually, sorry, no sir or madam, this is incorrectly labelled, we are not selling it to you for $199. Back to the point in question. If you're in a supermarket and you have food walking around the supermarket and you consume it, some people think that you are not dishonestly appropriating the product, which is one of the elements of theft, if ultimately you intend to pay for it at the tills. However, that's where Section 6 of the Theft Act of 1968 comes in, because this provides that a person appropriating property belonging to another without meaning the other to permanently lose the thing itself is nevertheless regarded as having the intention of permanently depriving the other of it if his intention is to treat the thing as his own and dispose of regardless of the other's rights. Because at the point at which you consume the food, the owner, i.e. the supermarket, no longer has the rights to that food because you've eaten it. So you've deprived the shop of its rights to the food, but you haven't yet paid for it. So under Section 6 of the Theft Act of 1968, that amounts to dishonest appropriation, ergo it becomes theft. How does that differ from a restaurant? Well, many people have quite rightly asked this question about going into a restaurant, sitting down and ordering food. Now, discounting those where you pay up front, obviously that is an implied acceptance of the contract that you pay up front and then they deliver you the food. But for those where you pay at the end, there is an implied term of the contract that you're going to pay at the end of the meal. But what if the food is absolutely rubbish? Well, there's two options, legally speaking, in this situation. Not that this is legal advice, but there are two options. First of all, you could pay for the food and then sue them for it, saying that there's a breach of contract because the food was rubbish. Secondly, you could refuse to pay for it and at that point accept breach of contract, in that the food prepared was not to a reasonable standard, or as the legal phrase goes, not prepared with reasonable skill and care, which is what the law requires when it comes to a service. And preparing you food is ultimately a service. It's technically a mixed service and goods contract, but the service is the predominant point of this contract because they are cooking the food for you. So in that case, if the food was absolutely rubbish and you say, well, I'm accepting breach of contract because this was totally rubbish, I refuse to pay you for it. If you want to sue me for the money, then here are my details. So provided that you provide some kind of contact to get in touch with you and then leave the restaurant, technically they would just have to sue you for the money. But I can't reasonably foresee many situations where the court is going to order in favour of the restaurant if you just ate part of the food and then left. On the other hand, if you had 20 people in there and you didn't pay anything at all and you just tried to use this tactical loophole to get away without paying the bill, you might think again, because this is going to be far more complicated, particularly if the bill runs into thousands, as it's likely to do if you've got 15 or 20 or more people there. The next thing people ask is, what about a forecourt, putting fuel in your car? Well, this is neatly covered by Section 3 of the Theft Act 1978, because this is known as requirement for payment on the spot, which is actually similar to that of a restaurant, although I've given you the breach of contract route as an alternative. Fuel, on the other hand, it is just payment on the spot. Unless, of course, there's any real reason to believe that you haven't received the fuel, but it's been metered into your car. Again, I can't really see a way around that, but otherwise, payment is required on the spot. And it creates this special offence of making off without payment, or bilking, as it's also referred to. But payment on the spot, as it's required under Section 3 of the Theft Act of 78, makes it an offence if you leave without paying, or at the very least without leaving your details so that you can be contacted and perhaps sued or so on. Sometimes, now I've genuinely done this myself, I've left my wallet at home and I've already put fuel in the car. I simply turned up to the cashier and said, look, I'll leave my phone with you, it's clearly worth more than the fuel, I'll be back in 5 minutes. They were okay with that. I came back with my wallet, paid for the fuel, everybody happy. But if you just leave, as in some of the videos that I've seen, having only paid for half of the fuel, then that is an offence, whether they like it or not, because the price on the forecourt for the fuel is the price for the fuel. If you don't want to pay the price, then you shouldn't put it in the car, because Section 3, as I've said, makes this an offence. So I hope that was an interesting explanation, a more detailed explanation to my trivia question this morning.
Hello, just a little follow-up to Dan's video, because I know you all like sort of tales from the bar. I had a couple of clients once up for handling stolen goods, namely a transit van. And their defence was that they'd been given it by a little old lady, which sounded implausible, but we tracked said little old lady down. And it turned out that, yeah, she'd been really annoyed with somebody parking their van on her driveway. So when my chaps were walking past, she just said, hey guys, do you want that van? And she never actually said it was hers. She just said, oh, I don't want it there anymore. And she was so fantastic in the witness box that the jury subsequently acquitted. So there you go, just a little anecdote to follow on from Dan's thing.
If you like those trivia questions, check them out on my community tab. Please like those and like this video and subscribe if you want more of these little trivia and explainers. And in the meantime, make sure you're subscribed and thank you for watching.